Hi. So this morning we're going to be throwing the net open on how to communicate with our partners and those close to us in our life. And we're going to be chatting with Simon, who is an integrative and transpersonal psychotherapist based in London. He's also a father of five. He is a Path of Love leader, Hoffman process teacher, and is trained in SE, somatic experiencing, for trauma healing. And Simon joins us in London. Hi.
Hi, Laura. Good morning.
Good morning. So we're going to be talking about something about the four areas where we can connect with our partners. You call these channels of connection, and I just wondered if you just explain a little bit about what you mean by them.
Well, I guess these are the 4 points where we touch each other and where it's possible to have either very good, clear connections or alternatively somewhat damaged, dysfunctional connections, depending on the state of a relationship. And I like to think of these 4 channels as obviously, first and foremost, the sexual channel. I mean, we need to fancy each other. And often that's where it starts, isn't it? Boy meets girl, eyes lock across a room, there's some kind of frisson. It's clearly a very important channel, the sexual one, the physical connection between 2 people. Then, of course, it's nice if we have shared interests, a kind of intellectual channel. Do you know what I mean? That we like, basically, that we like to talk about the same things. And there's a meeting of minds. We often, that word is obviously very much in our culture. Emotional connection. And by that I mean the ability to feel our feelings and communicate them clearly to the other person. This is important. Then that's so often one that is tricky for people. They may have a great sexual connection, great in bed, they may see the world the same way, but when it comes to actually talking about feelings with each other, it can fall down. And finally, what I call a spiritual connection. Difficult to define that one. Sometimes it's just a feeling that 2 people have that we were supposed to be together in some way. It's something that goes a bit deeper than emotions and thoughts. Fundamentally, are we 2 supposed to be together? And some people feel that very strongly, some people less so. And some people have shared spiritual beliefs, of course, that bring them together in that particular channel. There are belief systems they share that gives them a wider context, perhaps, than that just the 2 people alone in a relationship.
Thank you. So you said something very funny to Ben and I when we came to see you, which is that normally in a relationship, you'll really connect on 2, hopefully 3 areas. And then if you have 4, write a book about it, because most people don't really in their relationship. So I'm just wondering, within that, can you work on the experience of feeling a lack in one area? Are all of them as easy to work on as each other? Are some harder?
Well, some are really hard. I mean, if you don't have a strong sexual connection, if there isn't that kind of sexual attraction, you can work on that one as much as you like. It probably ain't going to happen. I mean, maybe that's a little pessimistic. I mean, there are, of course, marvelous people who work in the area of sexual communication, sex therapists, tantra teachers. There are a lot of people who can help develop that channel. But if it's not there at all, there's not much you can do about it. This is animal stuff, It's to do with pheromones, smell. I mean, it's happening on such an unconscious level that it's quite difficult to make something happen that isn't there. Mm. All of the other 3, I would say, yes, of course you can work on these things. I mean, I think as I've gone through life, I've seen that really expecting another human being to meet us perfectly in all 4 of those areas and to give us the intellectual, emotional, sexual, and physical stimulation we want, it's probably unrealistic, Mm. I mean, I think, as I say, it was a slight joke. If you've got all 4 going, write a book about it. I'd say most of us, if you've got 3 going, you've got a fantastic relationship. If you really feel across 3 of those channels, yeah, I feel really close to my partner in this area. I don't feel there's any kind of mismatch. We have our occasional tussles, obviously. But if you've got 3, that's a really good relationship. Most of us.
I'm wondering because, sorry, were you about to say something?
No, go on.
I'm wondering because you spoke about how emotions can be a hard one for us. And that most of us, we remain enigmas to ourselves, and so then how we're meant to communicate that to our partners can be really hard. But can there sometimes be a connection between emotions and sexual? Because you say it's almost impossible to remedy that sexual connection, although there are people working on it. But I'm wondering if sometimes, or I've just experienced it myself, but if one can work on releasing something that's blocked, sometimes that impacts where you are sexually, physically, etc.
Yes, there clearly is a strong connection between the sexual connection and emotional connection, and it often varies between men and women. And this is one of the great problems in relationships between men and women. And this is, I'm talking very stereotypically here, this is not always the case. But very generally, for a man to access their heart and emotions, sex is often the way in for them. So if a man gets his sexual needs met, it allows him to drop into his heart. And for a woman, it's the other way around. They need their emotional needs met for them to feel the sexual connection. Fundamental problem, as you can see here. And so often a lot of the battles in relationship are in this territory. You know, there's a man who's saying, I want to have sex. And a woman saying, well, you know, you've got to treat me nice. You know, you've got to approach me through my heart if you want me to open in other areas of my body. And this can be a problem until two people work out what's going on, what's the fundamental dynamic here at work. And instead of trying to sort of get our needs met from each other, if one can turn that around a bit and learn and be more intelligent about the other and learn, now what does this person need from me, and seek to put that into place, then what is, you know, can be a bit of a negative feedback loop can turn into a positive one.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So instead of then feeling begruntled by the fact that you're not being met on one area that is important to you, if you redirect the focus to how you can then fulfill your partner, it takes away a lot of that. Yeah, that's transforming a bit of negativity to something more interesting in a way.
Definitely. It's easy to say on paper. It's harder to do in real life.
Yeah.
Because so often what's happening is we're triggering each other in very, very early wounded places, and it's very difficult to think, like you and I are having an adult conversation here, and we can talk about these things, but if you and I were in a relationship and I was pushing your major buttons, the pain of rejection you experienced from your father when you were 5,
probably be guaranteed to.
Almost certainly. It would be very difficult for you to come out of that place. This is the problem, is that when we're in our stuff and when effectively we are children, really, you know, the stuff that's being touched or the wounds of childhood, it's very difficult to step out of that place and be mature and adult about it. And that's why it's so good sometimes to have someone else help us out of these places. I mean, when we get stuck, I'm married to a therapist, and yeah, we get to these places. We absolutely get into our childhood stuff, and we're sitting there, you know, we may look like adults, but we're behaving like 4-year-olds. And occasionally we can work our way through. We can unpick it sufficiently to have an adult conversation. But if we don't, we go off and see a therapist, and we have a lovely therapist in London who helps us when we get stuck.
Yeah, so, well, this is such a big topic, but just one of the last questions, I guess, that within these 4 areas that one can connect, but you're also touching on to that there can be subconscious, unconscious pulls towards the person you're in a relationship with. And yes, people often say that you're in the relationship with the person that you're going to be doing your healing with, or need to be doing your healing with. So yeah, where did these 4 channels stand in relation to that? That if we really have no choice over who we're with, fundamentally, and then it's almost that these spiritual, physical, intellectual, spiritual connections are almost like potentially boxes we can tick, but they're not really getting to the juice of what's there between you and your partner. Or is that wrong?
Well, it provides a useful framework. I mean, I think to be able to stand back and take a look at the relationship from an objective standpoint and say, okay, here we are, you know, here are 2 people. Where is it working? Where is it not working? Where do we think we could improve connection between us? You know, and if you know, let's say you have got a great sex life with your partner, but everything else is shot to pieces, you can at least acknowledge, okay, this works. You know, this works here for us too. Now, there are these 3 other areas: our emotional life, our ability to communicate, our intellectual life together, our shared interests, and our spiritual life together. Which one could we work on to bring another channel online? Yeah, and that's for 2 people to discuss. You know, what could we do? Maybe it's going out and doing more things together. Maybe it's going to art exhibitions together, finding a shared interest together, and gradually bringing a second channel online. And that feels a bit better, you know? And then maybe when you feel you've got two solid, you go, now, you know, maybe there's a third one we can do here. Of course, it relies on being able to discuss these things openly.
Yeah, lovely. So basically, it's almost sitting with your partner and having a conversation together about where you both feel you connect and what you can both work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, there has to be a willingness to work at relationship. A lot of people think that it's something that should just happen by magic. And the work element of it is often quite unattractive to some people. You know, they want the romantic dream where it all happens by magic. But for most of us,
sadly, it doesn't happen that way.
Well, you know that, and I know that.
Huh?
But you know, we all started off. A lot of us were sold this idea that relationships were just things that should happen magically, and you know, we were brought up with stories where this happened. And of course, it's not quite like that. There's work.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I found this really helpful, just in terms of sometimes one can get very confused about what might not, you know, to put a name to what might not be working or what you're struggling with. Suddenly this brought a lot of clarity, I know, towards my own relationship.
It's helpful to have a map sometimes, just so you know where you are, because sometimes when you're very lost, it feels like you're in the woods and you just don't know the way out.
Yeah. So basically, so just to wrap up, your final advice would just be to sit with the partner and almost have these 4 things down on a piece of paper, and then to work through ways that you can improve. Sounds like to add depth, I guess, to each channel.
Yeah, absolutely that. But the key to all of this is what you said at the beginning. It's sitting down with your partner and making a space where you talk about these things. Yeah. You know, that's the hard thing, especially for people with young families and busy jobs and stressy lives. We very rarely actually make relationship time where we clear the decks and say, okay, we two, we're going to sit together for an hour and we're going to talk about us. How are we doing? You know, and that's from that place, anything can happen.
And I guess I'd have one last question: is that it's not that you just will have one person that you connect to in all these areas. There could be not lots, but a few people in your world who you feel spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual connections to.
Sure.
And I guess there's almost a way of managing that if one can become clearer about it. If you have a loyalty to one person, or
yes, I think all of us have different friend groups, and we have different connections with our friends for different reasons. You know, we have our friends that we like to sit around with and have good, well, I do certainly, you know, have good heady discussions in the pub about the latest technological advances or something, mainly with my male friends. But they're not necessarily the ones I'm going to go to if I'm really needing emotional support. I might go to someone else for that. And I think, you know, it's quite common for us to have a wide range of friends in different areas, and no harm done to sort of not analyze that, but just be aware, this is the person I go to for this. I think we do it instinctively anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And Simon, that if people want to find out about your work, they can go to your website, which is www.simonmatthewstherapist.co.uk. Matthews is Matthews.
Yes,
I'm also just going to share with anyone watching now so people can actually see that website as well. But actually, I'm sorry, for some reason it's no longer available there. But yeah, so just check out simonmatthewstherapist.co.uk, and you can also go to throwingthenetopen.com. And if you want to get in touch directly with Simon, you can just put a note there and contact, and I'll get back to you, and I can put you in touch if you're interested in working with him directly. And thank you so much. And we're going to be having another chat later, but thank you very much for this.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Thanks, Simon. Bye.
Bye then.